What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I am your hostess, doing the mostest, and we are here with the second episode of MGM Plus's newest series, Earth Abides. It is post-apocalyptic, and I don't know if people were just sitting in the boardrooms and was like, I think we need some more post-apocalypse shows, because there are a lot of post-apocalyptic shows on the horizon and none of them are like the other. What makes this show pretty unique is the fact that it is based on a book of the same name by George R. Stewart that was written in 1949. And it's crazy at how somebody who wrote this book in 1949 can't even fathom the year 2024 was still able to capture the essence of what humans and what life is like when the entire world ends, because humans are the ones destroying it. So what makes this series just really fun, and a lot of adaptations, especially book adaptations these days, what makes it really fun is that the writers are able to update it in current times in a way that we can feel currently connected and we can be drawn into the story based on how we live our lives today, while still keeping the themes and the plots of what was going on in the minds of the author when they wrote it at that time, and infusing it with some of the worries and some of the fears and stuff that we have today. And with Earth Abides, at the end of the day, what we're still talking about is how us as humans are seemingly doing everything that we can to cause the earth to buck up on us. Like, Mother Earth is tired of humans, and even now, outside of fictional stories, in our non-fiction world, we are seeing the environment around us respond to the things that we have done to it. So with Earth Abides, I just really enjoy it because even before I ever saw this show, I was already thinking about, okay, how can I do something that affects the environment, not only in my immediate vicinity, but the environment of those around me. And specifically, in the United States of America, I've lived in a couple of other countries, but in the United States of America, we're very individualized, we're very singularly focused. We won't get behind a cause unless it individually affects us. And we're very selfish in that way, that we won't stand up for something or someone, even if it has nothing to do with us. So with that, I'm even looking in myself, and I feel that I'm very much like a communal person, especially with how I grew up. Like, community helped raise me, and I'm talking community in neighborhoods, community in a household, and things of that nature. So I was already kind of questioning, when it's my turn to go back into the earth, what will I have done that continues to help earth and help people when I'm no longer here? And so watching this show, it puts that question back in the front of my face. So I get to consume it in a way that is very hopeful and really shining a mirror onto humanity. So I would just say, as you're watching the show, look at it as a mirror of your own selfishness, and allow yourself to be humble enough to know that you are contributing to the waste of the earth, and look at it in a hopeful light that this could be you. And so what would you do, and how will you move forward to apologize to Mother Earth? And if given the opportunity for you not to be wiped out and you're one of the last few people left, what will you do to give back? So that was a hell of an introduction for this episode. But this episode just really touched me in my Fifi's episode 2. Oh my God, I forgot to get the name of it. I did see, I'm back to my old ways. I'm back to my old ways, guys. I just came back from vacation. So a little bit scatterbrained, but it's cool. It's cool. So episode 2 is titled The Space Between. So previously, if you didn't watch the episode premiere, or if you didn't watch my recap of last week, so what we know is Ish, the main character, was bit by a snake, which ended up putting him in a coma for 3 months. So he did all he could to like suck the venom out and everything like that. But he was up in the mountains. There was nobody around. And he just kind of went to sleep and was like on a hope and a prayer. Like, I hope I wake up. And he woke up months later. The swelling was down, but everything changed. He had hella missed calls, hella missed text messages from his mom, and the final text that she sent him was, "I love you." But as he's driving back in town, he's seeing like dead people on the ground, flies everywhere, signs are like falling off of things, trash, debris, everything like all around, and he's really confused, like, what the hell is going on? He finds himself going into like this hotel casino, and he ends up running into 2 people who show him a video of like what happened when this pandemic started to sweep the nation. And the woman who was there, you know, she's like, "I may be alive, but that doesn't mean that I'm living. I literally lost everything, and if I were you, I'd like figure out how you're gonna escape this." And unfortunately, in hearing this information, he's making his way to his parents' house, and he finds them deceased as well. So he's spiraling and he's going through all of these things. And honestly, I think the conversation from the 2 people that he found in the casino is really settling in, and he is just having a moment in the car, and he almost runs into this dog, and he gets out and he's like, "Wow, like, you're really lucky," because this is like the first other living thing that he's seen since these 2 people. So he names the dog Lucky, and he finds somewhere to bunker down, and he's kind of just existing for the past year. And he's doing donuts in his driveway, like in the area like right in front of the driveway, and he's just screaming his head off. So he's done, and he's kind of just like, okay, I've resigned. And Lucky is barking. So he's like, "What the hell are you barking for?" And he goes out on the balcony, and he sees smoke from a chimney from a couple of blocks away. So that was the previous episode. So let's get into episode 2. So Ish and Lucky drive over a couple of blocks to the house, tracking the smoke from the chimney. And he's a little nervous, but you know, he's been alone for a year. It's just been him and a dog in his books. And a woman, you hear a gun cock, and there's this woman on the roof, and she's like, "What you want? Like, what we doing?" And he's like, "Listen, I come in peace. I haven't seen a human being in a very long time. Like, we're practically neighbors. I don't want anything. I'm just like, I'm a human in need of like a human, and I am so shocked. Like, are you an apparition or are you real right now?" So she's kind of like assessing him very quickly, and she come down and she invites him into the house. So there's like some vegetables and stuff in the kitchen, and she has like clothes like on a clothesline and stuff like that. So they're just making small talk, and he's like, "You know, when did you get here? Because I've been here for a year. Like, this is the first sign of life that I've seen." So she had just settled in just a few days ago, and you know, she's been out and she's been, you know, trucking it alone and things of that nature. And in this moment, as they're conversing and you know, she's being polite and she's smiling, he has one of the first like cutest moments of the episode where he's just like, "Well, normally I don't look like a caveman," because his beard and stuff is grown out, and he calls himself Amish. And so in the presence of this woman who is beautiful, he hasn't seen anybody, the first thing that he thinks about after realizing like the scene is safe is like, "Oh my God, do I look handsome? Like, is she attracted to me?" And it's just so cute, because I think in any situation, we see a lot of post-apocalyptic shows, especially with like zombies and stuff, you're kind of like thrown into relationships by circumstance and things of that nature, just because it's like, I have a penis, you have a vagina, or even if it's same sex, it's just kind of like, well, you're the one that's closest to my age, so let's do something. But in this moment, even though like there's no sexual tension or anything like that, I just thought it was so cute that upon seeing the first person he's seen in over a year, his first thought is like, "Oh my God, I don't look presentable." And even in these small moments, Alexander Ludwig and Jessica Francis Duke, who's the other lead character, just the way that they look at each other, the way that they have these moments, even in them first meeting each other, is just so cute, and it really sets the tone for this episode. So they're talking, and she's offering him up some food, and they're just getting to know each other. Her dad was in the military, and her mom was a nurse, so she grew up hunting, fishing, and stuff like that. Like, she just loved being outdoors. And we find out that he was a geologist, so he's not like super familiar with guns, and he fished a little bit, but his domain is like Earth. So this is actually really lucky for the both of them, because in survival mode, she can do a lot of the killing, but he can look at stones, and he can read the earth and like geographical locations, and he knows the history of what was. And so for him to still be alive and for them to happen upon meeting each other, they actually have a lot of knowledge between one another and a clear path forward, should they choose to do so together, on how to actually survive, more than your average person. Remember, at this point, they only live in the United States, so they're just like, okay, 90% to 95% of the world at least has been wiped out, because if we're alive and we're immune to whatever this is, then we have to assume that other people are immune too. But this is a nice, gentle little meeting for them. So the nightfall is going, and let's talk about the nightfall real quick. Let's just kind of talk about this. If you've watched The Walking Dead, or even if you've watched if you've watched other apocalyptic shows like A Quiet Place, it's like there's some impending doom that's always out there. What I love about Earth Abides is, so far, like, the person is not afraid to sleep through the night. The only thing that they maybe have to think about is another human being coming into contact with them. But he's gone a year without seeing anybody, and she just showed up for 3 days, and she was wherever, and she was traveling alone. So the chances are very minuscule in that. So what I love about Earth Abides and it being post-apocalyptic, and something that to me is like at the back of my mind and kind of scary, is just like, sometimes the monsters are the easier thing to face than the silence alone. So nightfall is going, and Ish, being a gentleman, he tells Emma, okay, well, I'm gonna head back home, like, this was really nice. And she's like, what are you talking about? Like, you can stay here. And he's like, well, I don't want to intrude or anything like that. And she's like, it's okay, like, you can allow some kindness. And the eye acting in this moment, you could just see the fear, and you can see Ish trying to fight the joy that has leapt into his heart, and he's battling like, no, this is too good to be true, let me just go home and just be alone. Like, she's only been here for 3 days, she says she's not trying to stay long, so let me not get my hopes up at being around another person. And for her to see this war in his eyes, like, you can literally see it playing in his mind, for her to just offer him a modicum of kindness, and for him to stay the night, and he's just full of relief. And I'm pretty sure Lucky wants to talk to somebody else or hear another voice other than Ish's. So they spend the night together, but it's okay, kids. Everybody was on their best behavior. So we wake up the next day, and it's decided that they both would head back to the place that Ish was holed up at. So apparently he had like a lot more resources. I mean, she only went there for 3 days. He was there for a year. So it's like, okay, it makes sense. We're not going to be in two different households, and I can easily bring all of my stuff to your place than you bringing a year's worth of whatever you were doing over here. So she gathers everything that they need. They gather their belongings, and they go over to Ish's house, and she's walking around and she's looking around, and he is so embarrassed. He was like, if I had known that, I would have company over, I would have straightened up the place. And she's like, well, it probably would have looked a lot crazier if for over a year you kept this place like neat and everything. But the place wasn't even bad. He just had books all over the place. So she's like, okay, you know, it seems like you like to read. And he talks about how his mom got him into reading and the story that got him into reading for fun. And so they both share stories of their mothers introducing them to their first book that they really loved and everything like that. So he's like, okay, you know, make yourself at home, you know, look around, do what you need to do. So she's going outside, she's looking at the soil and everything. Again, we already know that she's a survivor. And if we're going to be holed up in here, we need to think about ways to grow food, where we can house food and things of that nature. And as he's settling into just this feeling of relief, he remembers something. And he goes over to this hallway and he cuts down a noose that he had, because he was going to end his life the day before. So we just discovered that the day that he was doing donuts in front of his own house and just screaming in the car, we now discover what the inner turmoil was. And he hurries up and he cuts it down. So that was just like, man, you're just 1.5 episodes, not even half episodes in, and it's like, this could have been over. And he's not somebody that is super faith-based. So it's like, were they meant to meet? Is he meant to stay alive? And what's the divine purpose behind him meeting her and the type of person that she is? So once he cuts it down and he gets rid of the noose, she's calling him over to the pantry and she's like, it's looking like there's like a rat infestation, because you can just see like a lot of rat poop. And like a lot of the stuff was, sorry, my dog is over here dreaming. I'm like, what is this noise? So you can just see everything is eaten through. So they go on a food run. And he's getting like a lot of non-perishables and a lot of bulk items. And she's getting like seeds to grow different trees, to grow different vegetables. And they're just talking and they're kind of just like teasing each other in between, because he's like, why do I have a feeling like you're getting things that you shouldn't be getting? And she's like, well, why do I have a feeling that you're getting like a whole bunch of other stuff that we may not even need? And she lets him know she saw some solar panels too. So let's go ahead and grab those and let's head back. So they finish the shopping run. Again, everything was super uneventful. And they head back to the house. So they're joking about her having to whip him into shape, because my mans don't know nothing about survival. Like, she is ready for the apocalypse. Like, she's been ready for the apocalypse. When we kind of have a very sobering moment where there's a break in their conversation and it's nothing but like dead silence. And she says, you know, that's the weirdest thing, is, you know, to not hear a single thing, not a bird chirping, not a cricket making noise or anything like that. And he ponders and he's like, you know, what if something is hunting on them? Like, if your whole food supply is gone, then somebody has to be the new apex predator, or something is trying to feed on them and survive just like us. And so this is where they come up with the idea, or just kind of toss around the hypothesis, that Mother Earth is cleansing itself. And he tells her, like, you know, we were the virus and she found a way to expel us from her body. And Emma says, you know, well, we gonna fight her back then. Like, if Mother Earth gonna be a bitch about it, then, you know, we can do something too. But it's said with reverence, and it's said with the follow-up of, okay, well, we have a responsibility to start over again and try to do it right this time. So then we go through moments, and there's a lot of moments in the episode where it's almost like a montage, not super fast, but time does pass in this episode, although we don't see like on the bottom of the screen 2 weeks later, 1 month later, anything like that. But you can tell that time is passing enough for them to get into a routine and learn how to maneuver in the household with each other. You see this very intimate moment. I think it's intimate, where she's washing his hair and she's trimming his beard and all of these things. And again, the conversation about fate comes up and divine intervention. and you know, him toiling with the idea like, okay, I didn't believe in God, but something is happening because how am I lucky enough to have you? And in these montage moments, we hear Ish narrating, but the narration doesn't necessarily come from super far in the future. It kind of just comes from a narration of what's happening in the moment and kind of letting us know what's happening as the time is going by. And as time goes by, they're realizing like, okay, yes, you're a man and I'm a woman, and you know, I'm attracted to men, you're attracted to women. Just because we're together doesn't mean that we have to be intimate with one another, but they've gotten to know each other in a space where you can tell that they've developed a trust and a friendship that led into being intimate with one another and developing a relationship as they journey through trying to just be better people and get through this apocalypse together, because they still don't really have answers. But what better way to get answers than to, you know, be able to have post-coitus hypotheses afterwards, you know what I'm saying? So that evening, after they made sweet love, we see him pull out a diary, and so now we see him writing in this thing. And so now you know that his narration is his physical documentation of what's going on, and it could be historical documentation, just so as time goes by they don't forget what's happening. But it could also just be like diary purposes. In the way that he narrates, it kind of sounds like a fusion of both, because we don't necessarily hear him speaking of things from like a past point. It's very much present, but it's not like Monday, September 8th, 2025, this happened. It's just written like a book, or just thoughts, or just ideas. But going into the next day, we see more of their interaction, and you get to see more of the things that they have in common. At this point, they're completing each other's sentences. And just overall, like I said at the beginning, of her just letting him know like it's okay to allow like kindness in. This episode's tone is just so sweet. It's full of love. It's full of intimacy, and not intimacy in the form of just two people having sex, but just two people trusting one another and respecting one another, and respecting each other's ideas, and respecting each other's opinions, and leaning on each other, not because they have to, but at this point because they want to. Which is why like even my tone of this recap is just like, this is what you want in an apocalypse. And it really reminds me of Rick and Michonne from The Walking Dead. And it's like, I was watching this episode and I'm just like, if Rick and Michonne didn't have to deal with zombies, this is what they would have had. And it's just like, man, and the fact that the two actors themselves are just beautiful on screen together, it's just like, if I were in an apocalypse, this is what I would want in my life. So again, time has moved forward. We're gathering supplies. We're setting up things. We are rooting ourselves in this house. And one night, Emma gets out of bed and she goes into her belongings, and she pulls out photos. And we see that it's photos of her and two daughters and her parents, and she starts crying. So now we see a little bit into the life that she had before everything ended. And I took this moment in her even going at this time to look at these pictures, because again, time has passed. I took this moment as her waking up in the middle of the night and just being like, wow, I think I'm falling for this man, like legitimately, and I can see us creating a life with each other. So her getting out of bed, I just took that as like her finally having like an internal funeral for the family that she once had, so that she can open up space for the family that she's potentially going to create with Ish. So the next morning, and this is absolutely the next morning because she has on the same gown. Well, not the same gown, but like her hair and clothes and stuff have changed. But in this in this scenario, like none of her outfits and stuff change. And Ish is messing with the solar panels. And like I said, last night, she was just looking at pictures, you know, of her old life and stuff like that. And she's like, hey, you know, when do you think these panels are going to be up? Is it going to be 3 months? Is it going to be 6 months? And he's like, you know, taking the stuff out the box. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I mean, we don't really care about time. Like, since when are you tracking time? Like, are you keeping a calendar or something? Because again, like I said, he's writing in a diary. He don't know what day it is. Do he even know what year it is? Like, that's like, he's given up on all of those things. And he's like, yeah, so, you know, why does it matter? Like, I don't know, maybe 6 months. What's happening in 6 months? And she's like, well, our baby is gonna be happening in 6 months. And he's like, what? So we find out that she's 3 months pregnant, and she's known that she's been pregnant for a little bit. Now, if you've ever had a kid, or if you've ever had somebody in your family who's like on multiple kids, they know when they pregnant before the HCG test even comes back. So she's had 2 kids that we know about. He doesn't know yet. And he panics. He's just like, there's no hospitals, there's no nurses, there's no doctors, there's no backup plan if anything goes wrong. And she's like, Ish, like, Ish, it'll be fine. We will be okay. Women have been doing this for a really long time. Like, you could just see in his whole face and his whole body just kind of being like, what the fuck are we going to do with a baby in this world? We're just trying to figure out how to survive ourselves. But it wasn't like your typical, like, I'm not ready to be a dad. It was just like, what if this baby is born and we're not alive? And she's there to calm him down and to talk him off the ledge that he literally hopped up on. Well, not literally, figuratively. But we know that he was suicidal before, so he might have. And to see that she's able to be his peace enough to kind of coax him through the things, this really goes to show like the type of relationship that they're building with one another, because this is not a normal situation. And I think in any situation, even if you never thought about having any ideations and stuff before, this would be something that would test you. And I love how she's gentle with him. She doesn't know, not that I know of at this point, that he has been this way, but I think any rational person would see the way that he reacted and understand that he may have space for those dark thoughts again. So I'm not saying it's her responsibility to keep him from those dark thoughts, but she does a really good job at allowing him to see the light in his life and not to succumb to the darkness that's in the deepest corners of his mind, if that makes sense. So time has passed. Ish done found every baby book within like a 10-mile radius. I mean, it's just books on top of books, pictures of ultrasounds. He's reading on everything. He's like, okay, we need to be ready. They have chickens in their backyard. The veggie gardens are doing pretty well, and she's looking about 8-9 months pregnant. So, you know, he's cooking her meals, he's doting on her and everything like that. And she's like, Ish, I want some meat. Get these vegetables out of my face. I don't want it. He's like, babe, like, you can get protein. She's like, Ish, don't make me hurt you. I said I want a cow, I want a horse. Okay, I want a buffalo. You know what? It's cool. I'll go get it. So she's getting ready to get her gun because she's like, I need some food. The baby wants meat. Like, she can't do it. And she lasted a really long time without it as well, but she is done. So he's like, no, babe, like, I got it. And she was like, you've never hunted. He's like, it's cool. Like, just tell me what I need to do. I'll go out and I'll figure it out. So he goes and he sees some cows grazing in an area, and he goes in there just ignorant. He don't know what to do. My man ain't never seen a farm a day in his life. Because if you did, you would have just strolled up on these cows. Cows get spooked very, very easily. So he goes in there and they're startled. So they start like scattering and stuff. And he's like, oh, you know, like, no, come back or whatever. Like, sir, you are not a shepherd. at all. So one of them didn't leave, and that cow was kind of like looking around, and it's like, okay, I'm not in danger. And then like some of the other cows like realized like, okay, he's just a fool. It's cool. We can still eat. And he's sitting there. He's like, okay. Whew. And I mean, he's talking out loud to himself. And this scene should not be funny, but Alexander Ludwig brought comedy in a space that is not funny because, again, the realistic reactions to this world, like, I just love how it's like, you ever see something and you just like, nobody would ever do that. That's not this show at all. Like, at all. So he holds up the gun. And I'm just like, Ish, baby, open your eyes. You need to see. Please do not shoot this cow with your eyes closed because you're scared. So he's like, I'm sorry. And he goes and shoots. He misses the shot in between the eyes. So the cow is like screaming. He's like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, fuck. And then he shoots it a second time. And the cow dies. The other one's just kind of scattered off or whatever. So he got his book, he got his anatomy book out, veterinary and stuff, like how do you gather pieces and stuff of a cow. And this is like the funniest part in here. So he's cutting it, he's reading it out loud, like, okay, all right, boom, you want to break the pelvis. He said, what the fuck is the pelvis? So he's going through it, he's cutting through, and he's like cutting through the skin. And he's like, oh. And then at one point he says, how the fuck did anybody do this? So he's like going through and he's pulling out organs, and in between like each point that he's pulling out, he goes over off to the side and he is throwing up bad. And he's like going through it and he's just like and he's putting everything inside the cooler. So he finally finishes and he says, self high five. Good job, Ish. And he's so proud because he made it through and he got everything. So he comes back with the cooler, and she's like, my dad, told me and taught me how to show reverence in killing an animal, because he just got like all the body parts and stuff in the cooler. And he's like, and here's one beautiful heart, like for you or whatever. So she's teasing him a little bit because she knows, like, boy, you are not a hunter. But, she gives him some praise and he's a little proud. And she's like, so did you skin it? And he said, skin what? Skin? Ma'am, do you know what I went through to just get body parts? And so she's laughing and she's like, it's cool. Like, I'll do it. I'll do everything like that. And she's like, and now you get the hunter's prize. And so she's giving him the heart, and she's like, you take the first bite or whatever. And he's genuinely gonna bite this heart, and she snatches it back. She was like, boy, I'm just playing. And so he's just like, in this thing, he's like, oh my God, like you play too much. And just this whole thing, you just see just their genuine chemistry with one another. Like, I honestly feel that if they realized that they didn't have any sexual chemistry, that they would still be really good friends. Like, you get to really see their friendship. And so they're doing everything, and she skinned the cow and it's hanging up, and they got all of this stuff all over the place, and they're doing everything when Lucky is barking that night, and all hell has broken loose. The rats are in the street, y'all. The sound, oh my God, like I always forget the name. It's like something like that. That thing with sound that makes you want to just like bang your head against the wall. I have that. So background noise has been silent this whole time. Shout out to the sound designers. Y'all do an amazing job. These rats are just coming in hordes, y'all. Y'all remember the season 2 mid finale of The Walking Dead at the farm when the horde came and took over the farm, and you're just like, wow, so this show is not gonna last. That's how many rats was in the street. And so they're coming towards the house. So the dog is barking. They're going outside, and she's outside with her gun, and she's shooting them. And they're like, she's like, what could they want? And he's like, oh my God, like we have to get rid of the trash, because all of the dead meat they just threw in the trash, and they weren't thinking about anything because they haven't really seen a lot of animals. So she's shooting them, and he's trying to burn the trash, but it's not enough, and they're still coming. And she's like, Ish, what do they want? And he was like, they want the cow meat. So he's like, okay, we need to get back in the house, and we need to seal up the house because our food source is in this house. They go inside, they're taping everything, and it's just like, oh my God, it's so bad. Oh, I'm about to throw up just even making it. So they sit down, and then she's like, do you think we covered everything? So they got all the first floor windows, the front of the house, the back of the house, this and the third. When he hears some stuff on top of the roof or an attic, I don't know if there's an attic up there yet, but you can hear it. And then Lucky is barking, and they realize they locked Lucky outside. So they see Lucky on the deck, and he's like trying to bite at the rats, but they're nipping at his hind legs. Like, rats will eat through anything. And so she's like, damn, they're gonna get in. He was like, okay, we'll figure it out. So they hurried up, opened the door, grabbed Lucky. I mean, he yoked Lucky at, ain't no come here, boy. He snatched my man's by the arms, yanked him in. She shut the door, a whole bunch of rats go in. So she's trying to get him out of the way and get him into safety because he is a little harmed. And Ish just loses it, and he starts beating every single rat in there with a bat. It was at least 3 dozen rats that made their way in, and he is just beating the living shit out of each one of them. So he killed all the rats in the room. She gave Lucky some Benadryl, and you see these bite marks on his hind legs. And so, she has the alcohol and some antiseptic, and they're trying to clean the wound as best as possible. And they're stitching it up and everything like that. So things kind of calm down. You can still kind of hear the rats outside, but they sealed up all of the doors with the duct tape. And so the rats aren't able to find a way to get in, because rats be finding their way into stuff. Like, how did you squeeze in this? And as a kid, I actually did get to, what do you call it? When you get like a cadaver and you get to cut all the stuff open? What do you call it? The act. I can't think of it. Not disembowel, but you know what I'm talking about. Oh my God, you do it in school? I can't think. I'm going, oh my God, what is the word? Somebody is probably watching this and writing in the comments like the word that I'm thinking of. Please help me, because I cannot think. When you, oh my God, what is it when you cut something open? I don't know, my God, it's like right there at the front of my brain. Anyway, let me move on. And so they're sitting in the bed, and Lucky is asleep, and it just says, I could lose you. And she's like, I'm gonna be fine. He was like, the baby is coming. You could die during birth. Like, there could be complications. And I'm sure he's thinking about just even tonight, like, what if she got bit? What if they got overrun? Like, they all could have died. And so he's just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And she's like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, nothing is gonna happen to me. And he's like, how can you be so sure? And she tells him, because I've done this before, twice. And so she finally opens up to him about her past life. And she lets him know that she lost both of her daughters on the same day to the virus. And she just felt like her whole life went numb. And she had to bottle up everything, because if she felt guilt, then she would have been weighed down by the guilt, and she wouldn't have been able to move on. And she said she wanted to tell him about them before, but they were her children, her losses, and her grief. And she didn't want to have to share that with him, because sharing it meant that she would have to process her own grief and process the guilt of surviving, even though her daughters didn't. And then she would have to begin the process of moving on. And I just love that Ish is just a great listener. He never interrupts anything that she says. He listens with his whole soul. He gives her eye contact. His body is facing hers. He gives her reassuring touches. And in this, in her confession and in his listening, you can kind of see them both kind of settle into, we will be fine and we will be okay. So they're having this moment, and we're back into the narration of some of the things that Ish has seen over the last year. And he talks about how some of the animals have gone extinct because they haven't been able to find food and water sources. But an animal that has not gone extinct and that has just been multiplying in droves are the cats. Cats are everywhere. And one thing cats will do is survive. So earlier when Emma was like, what are we going to do about these rats? Like, we cannot stay holed up in here. the good Lord in nature sent them a reprieve, and we see a shot of thousands of cats eating every single rat on the street. So the next day they wake up and Ish notices the silence again. So he goes outside and there's no rats around, there's no nothing. He could see like some dead, but that huge horde that was like outside, none of them are gone. I mean, none of them are gone, none of them are here. So he calls up and he's like, you know, where did they go? Like, it seems like they've all gone. And she comes out of the balcony and she says, that's good because someone is coming. Turns around, baby, that water broke. So again, this montagey music playing over her going through the labor. He's holding her, their foreheads are touching. He's rubbing her back, he's rubbing her stomach, he's holding her hand, he has the water, he's dabbing her sweat. At one point he went to touch her and she was like, no, like stop, like you're on me. Those of you who've never been around anyone with birth, after a certain point, touching it's not a soothing signal in the body. When you're trying to rub pregnant woman, the way that the receptors are receiving that touch is not something that's going to make a woman relax. It's quite the opposite. So if you got a pregnant wife out there or girlfriend and she in labor, know that after a while touching her ain't gonna do it. Just start being like, what do you need, what do you want? Again, cold compress, stuff like that, squeezing the hands. Don't touch unless you're told. You've been warned. And so now the baby is coming. So she's pushing the way that you should be pushing, in a squatting position, not laying on your back. Allow gravity in the canal to let the baby work their way out of the vagina. And so she knows, she's been through this twice, something is off. So she reaches her hand in there and the baby's shoulder is in front of the head. So he's like, is that breech? Oh my God, it's breech. Oh my God, let me go get a book. And she was like, you better not go get a fucking book. Get in here. That's just some fancy way to say that the head is not coming out first. You have a job to do, sir. So he is having a panic attack. And as she's talking to him and she's like, okay, Ish, this is what I need you to do. They do an overlay shot of him digging a grave in the backyard and holding her dead body. And she's like, Ish! And he snaps out of it. And she's like, get over here because we need you. So he's like, okay, what do I need to do? And she's like, I need you to put your hand in there. He said, you need me to put my hand up where? She's like, the head is there. The arm is just in the way. Put your hand in there because you're going to have to help pull this baby out. So he's putting his hand in there. He's like, oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. So he's like, okay, I feel the shoulder. She says, okay, do you feel the other shoulder? So he's reaching around. And he's like, okay, I feel the other shoulder. She said, that's good. Now, I need you to take the shoulder that is in the way. And I'm going to push as soon as I contract. You will feel it. You will feel it, and you will have to move that shoulder out of the way and pull down while the head is trying to come out. So she's screaming on her push. She's like, it's ready. So she's pushing and he's screaming. So she's screaming and all he's yelling is, holy fuck, holy fuck, holy fuck. And the baby slides out on his arm, cut like a football. And the baby comes out and she's crying and she's screaming. And Emma falls over on the bed. And he's like, it's a girl. And the baby is crying. And she's like, okay, let's watch the umbilical cord. Make sure it's not wrapped. Let's clamp it. Let's cut it. And they have this moment. And they're just elated. And he's so happy that she is fine. The baby is fine. The baby is healthy. They do the skin-to-skin contact. And then, you know, she's exhausted. He's exhausted. But they are just happy. And he looks at Emma. And he's like, I love you. And this is the first time he's said it, like out loud. And she looks up at him and he's looking at her and he looks at the new baby and he says, I love you too. And she's like, and we love you so much. And he's like, you know, welcome to, you know, repopulating the earth. And they have this little joke, and she's like, wow, that's a lot of weight to put on her little baby shoulders. And he's like, it's not just her shoulders, it's mine and it's yours and it's ours, and we'll share this. So we go through another montage, and the baby is a couple of months old. Emma's natural hair is flourishing. And this is really important because one of the things that she told Ish was her daughters had always wanted her to wear her hair natural when they are alive. And so when they passed, she decided to do braids. And she said, I did them tight enough so that nothing would ever like mess them up, or that I wouldn't get the urge to like cut my hair or do anything like that. And so holding her new baby girl, she gets to still honor her baby girls who passed by continuing to live even physically in the way that they wanted her to live when they were alive. And we get the voiceover, and Ish is just looking at his wife, and, you know, he's looking at the baby, and, you know, vegetable stuff is still doing well. They're still eating well. Like, life is looking good. And in the voiceover, he says, you know, my former self would kind of be embarrassed to say this, and I apologize, but I feel so blessed. So there's that. Season 1, episode 2 of Earth Abides. Y'all, this episode is so sweet. So sweet. And I just realized now that I forgot to tell y'all like the information of who wrote this episode, the director and stuff like that. Now that's basically because I be coming off of shows that have like multiple episodes, and so you kind of already know. But we're only 2 episodes in, so let me just give some information. So I already said that it's based on the book of the same name by George R. Stewart. The genre is sci-fi / post-apocalyptic. The director is Bronwen Hughes, and it was created for television by Todd Komarnicki, but this particular teleplay for this episode was done by Janszen. The cinematographer or director of photography is Vince Arvidson, and the composer is Adam King, and the editor is Maxine Lahaie. It stars Alexander Ludwig as Ish, Jessica Francis Dukes as Emma. And again, all of this information will always be in the show notes as well as the description box if you're watching it on YouTube, but it will be in the show notes if you're listening to this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so you'll always have the information on that. This particular episode was 52 minutes. All of the episodes seem to range between 50 and 57 minutes, so just allot your time. It airs on the app every Sunday, but you can watch it midnight Eastern time on Saturday night, like Sunday morning. And if you're on the Mountain Time or Pacific Time, then you're the lucky ones because it'll air at 9 p.m. Pacific on Saturday and 10 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday for those of you who live in a mountainous state like me. So, my thoughts on episode 2, especially coming off of episode 1, this show is very much, how do I put it? Each episode, so you know how when you watch an episode and it'll, even if there's a cliffhanger at the end of the episode that'll make you want to watch the next one, you know that it's an end to that episode. So in Earth Abides, it's almost like they shot the whole thing and then went back and the editor said, okay, this will be a good stopping point. It reminds me of a book. Like when you finish a chapter in a book, it's not the finality, but you're compelled to turn the next page and start the new chapter. So it feels like going from episode 1 to episode 2, it's like, okay, chapter 1 is over and then chapter 2. And I'm pretty sure this show has what, 6 episodes, 7 episodes. And let me look at IMDb because I don't remember off the top of my head. But either way, it feels like, yes, it's a book, so it has 6 episodes. But it's like, I'm pretty sure each episode covers multiple chapters. That's why we're getting like a little bit of some time jumps and stuff like that. And each episode is going to have the meat of an important chapter. But still, going from episode 1 to episode 2, it just feels like, okay, I finished this chapter. Let's start the next chapter. It doesn't feel like an end if that makes any sense. And so because of that, you get to have this layout of a story that makes you feel like you're there with them. Like I feel like a historian, and I feel like I'm recalling the love story of two people who met each other during the ends of time. And the fact that so far they haven't really gone up against anything that threatened their lives other than rats, there's a piece to this that is unlike any other post-apocalyptic show I have ever seen. So I just really enjoy the approach from the director's standpoint and the editor's standpoint in how we're telling the story. And I love that with the narration, it's not like, let me tell you of that time when. So you're still left in the dark about what is going on. This isn't kind of like how the Titanic started when she's telling the story about what happened. So it's like we don't have an answer. So he's telling the story in a way that captures the life that he's kind of already experienced post-apocalyptic and what's happening now. So I have no idea what that looks like. And so because we're not like, oh, everybody died, let's go in the past and find out what happens. We're very much in the present. So it keeps you on your toes in the storyline. If you're somebody that's looking for like gore and things of that nature for a genre that's like this is not that type of show. But I will say something that's in the back of your mind, especially if you like thriller or suspense, and something that's in the back of my mind is somebody is going to come along and this peace bubble isn't going to be there anymore. So in the back of my mind, I'm already stressing myself out because I'm just like, y'all just don't happen to meet each other and y'all are kind. What happens when someone that's not kind and someone that wants what you have because they were unable to create it, what happens when they come along? So even in the sweetness of this episode and the beauty in Ish and Emma finding each other and having a baby, like they spent in episode 2, another year has passed. Episode 1, a year passed. Episode 2, another year has passed. And it's just them. And now it's them, their baby, and their dog. And they're living this fantasy life in this type of world. What happens when that world is shattered? So that is going to wrap up this episode. I hope I was able to paint this picture for y'all enough to go watch it. Again, in my recaps, there are certain things that I like to keep out because I want you to just go watch it and experience it. And maybe you'll interpret certain things that I didn't interpret in that way. But I'm set. And I look forward to all of the other episodes. I look forward to this journey with Ish and Emma and just seeing like what does it look like when they're not fighting death at every turn, and what does it look like repopulating the earth from the ground up. And with that, as always, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave comments in the comment box below. If you have people in your life who don't like to watch the videos, but they like to listen to things as they're busy or driving, you can always share the link to my Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's on there as well. What else? You can follow me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, where not only am I going to be talking about the show, different clips of that nature, but I'm also talking about other shows that's on the horizon that you should be watching. And if you want to see me just acting a plum fool, you can find me on Twitter at Kivanshi, as well as Blue Sky at Kivanshi. And with that, I'm going to head out and I will catch y'all in the next one.